Welcome to the Food Web Podcast. I'm Justin.
And I'm Keegan.
And today we're going to be talking about permits, regulations, and all of that kind of stuff when it comes to renting a commercial kitchen or operating a commercial kitchen.
That's right. Everything you need to know about getting your kitchen ready to have renters inside of it. Not necessarily through the Food Web kitchen rental platform, just in general. But the Food Web kitchen rental platform is designed to make this whole process easier. We're hoping not to scare you with the process, but just really to lay it out as it is. That you will, if you wanted to make extra money with your kitchen, you're going to have to go through this process, whether you use Food Web or not. So yeah, let's get into it, Justin. Let's lay it out. Step one, if I'm a kitchen owner and I want to rent my kitchen because I've got a cafe and it's closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, what's the first step?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I'll say first is just throughout this, we're going to be talking a lot about kitchen owners and kitchen renters. Even though we're going to focus on the kitchen owners part first, we're going to be referring to this kitchen renter. So if there's any renters listening, we're going to have a towards the end of this or a separate recording that'll be its kind of own thing, because your process of going through, is different. You're renting somebody else's kitchen. Right now, we're going to be talking about if you have a kitchen, whether it's, yours, you own it, maybe you manage it, it's a community center, maybe you're, you work work for a church. This is kind of who we're speaking to. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Absolutely. Two different people and customer segments that I'm using way too much business language here. Two different folks, two different types of folks that we're talking to. The nomenclature is important. The renters, they're the folks that are bringing the money to the kitchens and renting and then selling their products at farmers markets or local sources, local farm, like grocers and grocery stores. If you want to produce a product to put in there, it has to be done so in a commercial kitchen. And so, yeah, Justin, take it away, man.
Yeah, so if you oversee a kitchen and you have some downtime and you want some additional revenue and you say, okay, I want to consider renting my kitchen, and a lot of folks are already doing this in their own ways, but after speaking with probably over 100 kitchen operators, the ones that have rented their kitchen to others have expressed, it being very time consuming, handling, it's a tenant application, really. Somebody wants to come in, you need agreements. Even before you get to the permits, we need to talk about insurance. So it can be quite daunting. But let's start from the top. What's required to do this? So let's say you're the renter and you come and you say, I want to rent your kitchen. So the first thing I might want to do is, understand your business a little more. But more importantly, do you have your own insurance? Most of the kitchens we talk to, their insurance wouldn't cover another business using. You check your own coverage. That can vary. But I might say, hey, I need you to go and get a $1 million general liability insurance. So, you might go off for a week and do that. In the meantime, in Nova Scotia, because this is our, where Food Web is getting started, we need to notify the health inspector that you're going to rent our kitchen. So there's something called a permission to use form, something like that, permission to use kitchen form. We have these links on our website. Both of you would sign this. So Keegan says, yes, I want to rent, and Justin says, I authorize to rent. That goes to the health inspector. Okay? And then
that has to happen regardless of whether or not you're using Food Web or not. So people are managing that process on their own right now. Is that the case?
That's the case. Most people we talk to, everything from somebody is inquiring to rent a kitchen to the exchange of permits and documents is all happening by email. And I don't know about you, but my email inbox gets out of control regularly. So when you're exchanging forms to sign, and how often have you seen you forgot to sign on page 2 on this contract and it gets sent back, right? So, this is really why we built Food Web, is to just make it streamlined so you can navigate this process without confusion.
Now, if I get that form signed and back and forth, let's say I'm on it and you're on it, and we get that signed in 3 minutes, right? And then we send that off to the health inspector. Am I able to rent your kitchen immediately, or do we need some sort of email, verbal, or signature approval from that health inspector?
So that's where there's nuance, as always, in these things. So if you're going to use the kitchen to sell the product. Like you're making a batch of chicken salad, and that specific batch of chicken salad you're going to be selling at the market, yes, you're going to need to talk to that health inspector, because that's not the only permit that gets signed. So for you to just have your business selling at the market, there's a separate permit for that. You have a market permit. On that form, it says, what kitchen do you use? So you also write. So the permission to use form and the market permit form, they talk to each other, and they're going to be sent at the same time, right? Or if you're not selling at a market, you're a catering company, there's a different type of permit for those types of food businesses. So you're going to be in touch with the health inspector regardless, but what we're making sure is that, you know, the kitchen owner isn't just like waiting around and wondering what's happening while you're scurrying off, right? We're containing that process to make sure that we're able to keep track of all these documents.
And like, based on the conversations that you've had with people who've gone out and gotten these approvals and submitted these forms with the health inspectors, what did they tell you is the turnaround time to hear back from these?
It depends. It depends.
Of course,
on what you're doing, right? Like, I think back.
Has anyone got a same day approval?
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it. You know, and you know, it really depends. Like, if you're doing it depends on not just on the inspector or the time of year and the typical. It depends for government. I'm also talking about it depends on what you're making.
Right.
Right. So I think back, Isaac Greenberg. If you're listening to this, years ago he had a tempeh business. He was making tempeh, and like, super common normal food in
ancient food
in Asia and Indonesia, you know.
I said ancient.
No, and I'm saying I think it originated in
gotcha.
Indonesia.
Yeah.
But here it's newish, you know, and like rather than grocery store tempeh, like artisanal tempeh made in small batches sold at the farmers market, the health inspectors took a little longer on that one because they needed to say, okay, what's your process, and we need to make sure that you're doing it in a way that's not going to create issues, So the health inspectors, it's not a system where it's like I apply for permit, check all box, get approved. That's not how it works. It's you, specific individual, what is your process? What are you making? What ingredients go into this? Therefore, that informs a risk profile if it needs to get, you know, passed to a different division of their team that oversees different things. They have like microbiologists and all these people that work in those departments. So, long story short, you know, if you're just making something kind of normal, you know, it could take a week or two.
What does normal look like?
Oh, boys. I might open a can of worms there because, you know.
No, but okay.
Yeah.
Is chicken soup normal?
I would say so.
Is vegetable soup more normal?
No.
Is it less risky?
I would say something that's already commonly eaten, you know? So like you're making a different version of soup, but it's soup, right? Like the tempeh example was, it was not common in our culture and it, you know, to be eaten. So it was like, you know, similar things with fermented foods. You know, everybody loves fermented foods now, like for gut health, but 20 years ago, there weren't like 20 artisanal companies per little town, right? So, yeah.
Right. Okay, I got you. So, like, what happened to Isaac then? Like, what was the outcome there?
He got approved. It just took some time. I mean, he's sitting around, you know, waiting and corresponding back and forth, and if they need more information, they're not going to get back to you. So it can just be a lot of back and forth in this process. And, you know, something at FoodWeb, like, we're here to help with that too, right? Like, we have the platform that you can navigate to go through to rent a kitchen. But if you're in the weeds talking to a health inspector, like, give me a call, like, email me. Like, I want to help you navigate that process because, you know, in Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, we're not as advanced. Like, if I look to Guelph, Ontario, for example, they have a university incubator, food business incubator. There's funding through the government as well. If you have a food business, like, you're showered with support to navigate that process, right? I don't know what the turnaround time on emails is. Might still just be as long, but there's a sense of support. Whereas in Atlantic Canada, especially for some of these smaller scale folks, it can be daunting to navigate all of this.
Right. So then, like, given a potentially almost guarenteed long turnaround time, it then becomes really pertinent to have all your eggs in your basket and your ducks in a row and your T's crossed and your I's dotted before you make that email, right? So the position that we're in here at FoodWeb is like we've seen a lot of these forms. I mean, have you filled out one of these forms yourself, or like been privy to like the connection of like someone who has? And
Oh, of course. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So then, you know, we've got some checklists, you know, we've got some things that you can run by. And even if you're like approaching this slowly, it just gets you in really good shape for when you do want to pull the trigger and get those permits and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, so the permit process is one part, right? Like somebody let's say all your permits get approved. Right?
Yeah.
We're using the example, I have a kitchen and Keegan's making chicken soup and he needs to rent my kitchen. Before you get started, you know, there's some other things that you need to consider too. So let's kind of, you know, talk about that.
The kitchen needs to be insured.
Well, if you're operating a kitchen in a restaurant, you very likely have insurance
anyway
already.
Yeah.
It'll just be really important to, you know, look at your insurance coverage and make sure that you have clarity, and we'll have some guidance on that of what to be looking for in your policies, and then it's up to you on what type or level of insurance your renters need, and then, you know, there's a couple other things you need to do to get ready. And this is through some of the conversations I've had with some local health inspectors on what do they need. Right? Because this is a three-party situation, right? There's kitchen renters, there's kitchen owners, and there's health inspectors. And if you work in the food business, people say health inspector, and sometimes people's energies go, oh. You know, like I've had a bad experience with a health inspector that came into the restaurant during a busy time to do a random inspection, and it's like, bro, really? But at the same time, you know, they got a report of somebody getting food poisoning, and they have to go and make sure that it's contained, right? So shared kitchens have a level of risk that not shared kitchens don't, right? If I have some chicken on the top shelf of the fridge and it's leaking, dripping on another renter's food, you know, there's risk of things spreading beyond just the one business. So the health inspectors are a little more cautious when it comes to shared kitchens. And in my conversations, one of the big things is transparency, and traceability, and what we can do to actually be accountable to know what's one business and what's another. So if you're just getting started, one of the big things is going to be where food is stored, right? Storage is something that's come up quite a bit, and
there's nuance there from my understanding as well, right? Like you mentioned this a little bit earlier. Like I can't just cook in a kitchen and then like take that home to put in my pantry until it comes time to sell that product, right? Like,
yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through some of that nuance and like walk us through it from like the dry goods perspective, the cold goods perspective, and then the frozen goods perspective?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is quite a bit here.
Yeah. Right.
So, okay, I'm going to add another layer here. So there's dry goods storage, equipment storage, fridge, and freezer. So there's 4 types of storage and at 2 states of storage. During your time in the kitchen and like overnight, like interday, can things be left behind, okay? So let's start with while you're in the kitchen. I come in for 6 hours. I have my time slot booked. During that 6 hours, I might have some milk and cream that I'm using for my sauce that has to stay refrigerated. It can't just sit out for 6 hours. So I need fridge space during my rental to keep my food safe. Even if I am packing it up to bring somewhere else, during this time I need access to a fridge. So even if a kitchen doesn't have space for you to leave things overnight, like once everything's in big containers all packed up, that's one thing. But there's going to need to be some kind of like operating space to go in and out of the fridge during a booking. So as a kitchen owner or operator, the big thing is like, do you have a shelf and a fridge you can clear? That's a pretty significant thing that's going to need to be considered to be able to, share your kitchen. But what Keegan was getting to was kind of overnight. So if I'm renting a kitchen on a Thursday to get ready for a Saturday market, I have to make my food and then it has to stay cold and safe. From what I understand, if you're selling at the farmer's market, you can take that home and put it in another fridge. It'd be ideal. I think a lot of inspectors are going to want to see it stored on site. But where things get tricky is once you start scaling into retail beyond the farmer's market. So, for folks in Nova Scotia, think of like Local Source or Noggins type stores, these smaller retail stores. Even if it doesn't need to be in the fridge, even if I'm making cereal or dried spice blends, I mixy in the certified kitchen, package up, all vacuum sealed, that's stable at room temperature, right? I'm not allowed to take that home, store in my garage, and then distribute to my retail partners from my garage. The health inspectors require that to be stored on site of where it was prepared. Or in some other,
registered storage facility.
Registered storage, but then you're in supply chain management, going from multi assets in your food operation, right? So that is an incredibly huge barrier for growing local food. Because somebody's making hot sauce. I go and I rent a kitchen and I fill 8,000 bottles of hot sauce in one run because I had all my peppers, blah, blah, blah. I only really need the kitchen for one big production run. But I have to have storage for that much hot sauce at this little church basement. So this is something that comes up as a challenge. So as a kitchen owner, it's something to just consider is, okay, if I'm going to start renting my kitchen, maybe I buy an extra shelving unit to go in the corner over there, right? Because people are going to need some shelving. And, if people are going to start renting your kitchen regularly, maybe it justifies the purchase of a fridge. Or maybe you tell your renter to buy the fridge, right? And they they put it there. But these are just some things to think of is where are you going with your food business? Because if it's just a side hustle at the farmer's market, you might be okay with a church basement, but once you start signing some retail deals and you have 4 or 5 locations, the permits and the regulations shift. So, again, with FoodWeb, we're here for every step along that journey, right? Like if you're just getting started, reach out. If you're selling at 5 farmers markets and a couple retail deals, reach out. Like we want to know how things are going. We want to see more food businesses go from the farmers market and into the grocery stores.
Awesome. So I do want to zoom in on a number of points there. So in the context of the kitchen owners and the space that they provide, having some swap space available for the people within their kitchen, it's approaching like a must-have kind of situation, right? Like if you don't provide some fridge space for your renters, like they might have a hard time. If you don't provide dry goods storage swap space during the rent, it's not a good, you're not set up well. So then the question is, well, maybe my fridge is like totally full. Maybe my shelves are totally full and I need to go invest in another shelf, right? Well, that shelf might cost $300. The fridge might cost way, way more than that. Am I just doing this so I can rent my kitchen? Or is there some angle here? Well, there's an angle here. So on FoodWeb, like Justin mentioned, this is a huge barrier for people to solve. Like storage space is a very relevant topic in the whole life cycle of producing and distributing food. So then you go buy that shelf or fridge space, and on FoodWeb will allow you to monetize that. Just the same way that you monetize people in your kitchen, you can add a price per hour to dry storage for the short term and dry storage for the long term. We would make the recommendation that like dry and cold and even maybe freezer space during, set that number to 0. Unless you've got some good reasons to not have it be 0, to allow, people to have some swap space. But the long-term stuff, like there's some really good business cases there. And I'm personally quite excited for people to explore that nexus more and let us know how that goes, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to spend $1,000 on a shelving unit, you can say, hey, it's like $80 a month to leave your stuff on 2 shelves, right?
Right.
So our platform allows you to add those add-ons. Make it easy.
Right, because this whole thing's about shared kitchen and shared resources, and just like want to kind of clarify the word shared a little bit here. It's like you're allowing someone into your kitchen and to use your shelf space and whatnot, but like the word shared, we deviate from that because you're monetizing it. They're really renting it from you, but like the community element of this is like you're in a vulnerable spot letting someone into your kitchen. Like if they burn it down, that's not a good situation for anyone to be in. Mm-hmm. So I do want you to like dive now into like the conversation of insurance, but also like speak to the vulnerabilities of people. Like what have you heard from kitchen owners about like their apprehension to doing this? Like why aren't people doing this themselves, and what friction points exist?
Yeah, so aside from the friction point of just time, we kind of cover that. Some things come up, people say, what about insurance? So as we mentioned before, we allow you, the kitchen owner operator, to specify what the insurance requirements are. So you can say, hey, my insurance covers additional renters. I have a cool insurance thing. We're good. Don't need them to have insurance. Great. Or you can say, nope, you do need to have insurance. And that's that. And then you can put that forward. So if, to the horrible example of a fire or something like that, is like insurance is gonna cover that. That's gonna be in those insurance packages. If there's some sort of crazy gross negligence, that'll come out in the wash on the other person's insurance. Like it would still be awful and like big setback in time, like nobody wants to go through that, but in terms of financial liability on something big, that's what insurance is for. Like insurance is just a good thing to have on, very expensive assets.
And like, so is it required for the kitchen to be operational? It's like you said, it's a very good idea. And then on the kitchen side, do they require it for the renter? Like, do both parties need insurance? Does FoodWeb want both parties to have insurance?
We want you to have insurance. You having insurance or not is is ultimately your choice, and this gets into like, if you own a property, right, like your mortgage is going to require you to have insurance. If you're renting a commercial property, your landlord is probably making you have insurance. There's a lot of steps along the chain where somebody is going to be making or wanting you to have insurance. But we leave that decision to you. But in the big sense, I wanted to kind of talk about layers of liability and where things can get challenging for kitchen owners. So insurance will cover the big stuff. There was a fire, there was a flood, somebody broke into the building, these types of things. What happens if I break $1,000 blender?
Oh yeah, right. The blender itself is not insured.
Like what? Probably not. And the deductible, in these types of things are like, what if I break a $200 thing? It's like, that sucks, but it's like, you're not going to go through an insurance claim on $200, right? And this has been a big challenge for kitchen owners. People are like, oof, like I'm worried about these things and how to handle it. That's why we built FoodWeb, right? Because if, I meet somebody and I rent their apartment and we email back and forth to make an agreement, that's one thing. If I rent an Airbnb, there's a formal transaction. This is recorded. And if there's an issue, I stayed at an Airbnb once and got accused of getting bleach on some like Calvin Klein towels. They like discolored or something. There was a dispute and that was able to be put forward. And now there's a record of, hey, there's been an issue. We need to resolve this, right? Ultimately, Airbnb didn't intervene, but they prompted this ability to say, hey, there's been an issue. You guys need to talk about this and resolve this, right? They're not going to text me or email me. It's kept within this container where it can be seen, tracked, and if anything ever, God forbid, went to court, there's all of these steps and all these transparency and traceability. And that's what FoodWeb is here to do, is to, make sure that if somebody's engaging in this arrangement, it's done professionally, it's well documented, And
So we're really standing in as like an Airbnb like neutral third party between the renter and the kitchen. You're totally free to go and craft your own rental agreements with churches and community halls. In fact, that's the most common thing that we have seen. People just cold calling churches and finding their own way into these agreements. But one of the, like you've laid out, one of the benefits of like putting all of this onto FoodWeb would be to essentially have a neutral third party to account for any of those situations of dispute, like you said, God forbid. But they do happen, right? They're gonna pop up. What recourse, like ahead of time, does the kitchen have in recouping funds? Like, do we? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so we allow kitchens to put forward an optional deposit and specify how much that deposit is, right? And then that's there ready to use whenever, if it ever needs to be used. So it could be like if somebody, have you ever been blending like a hot soup and the lid blows off and like you get something on the ceiling? It's only ever happened to me once. Blenders are better than they used to be, but shit happens. And like if you're like, oh my god, like I have to hire a cleaner and mop the ceiling with a ladder, yeah, like you're paying for that. I'm sorry, like you messed up. We're gonna take a picture, we're gonna upload that to FoodWeb, and we're gonna say, hey, we're taking this person's deposit, or if something gets broken, you could have a deposit for damages. And then the renters are consenting to that. It's like, hey, if I want to rent this kitchen, the cost is this much per hour, and there's this security deposit.
Awesome. Yeah, that all makes sense. And then there's one other element there as well, which is like if you really love your blender and you care about it and you don't want it to be used by your renters, then we allow you to specify that this piece of equipment is not shared, right? Some things are going to be non-negotiable. Like you can't restrict the use of the stove, for example, right? Or the oven or the cutting boards. Like, I mean, you might be able to, who knows? But, your equipment is yours. That kitchen is yours. That's a value that we've embedded like all the way through the whole platform of FoodWeb. Is that we want to give the kitchen owners as much control as possible over feeling comfortable about these arrangements.
Yeah, and one of the things that we allow too is when renters are renting your kitchen for the first time, you can require an orientation session. So we spoke with a cafe owner in Halifax about FoodWeb a couple weeks ago, and she was saying, oh yeah, like extra income from renting my kitchen, that would be really cool. But I have concerns about people using my oven because they have one of those fancy ones with like the digital touch screen at the beginning. It's not just set temperature, right? It's like steam settings and all these things, and those ovens can run hot. And if it's over 450 degrees for too long, it can automatically turn itself off. And if that happens too many times, it can mess up the wall. It's a whole thing, right? Like technology. And you need to really show somebody how to use that, right? It's not just turn oven on. It's like, hey, like there's a set of practices here. You're going to want to show somebody. And we also prompt that. And we allow people to, people aren't just going to be able to log on and book your kitchen and show up tomorrow. They're going to apply. You're going to be notified. You can review them. And maybe it's like, oh, they use peanuts. Like, we're a peanut-free kitchen. Sorry, we're going to have to deny you as a renter. The kitchen owners have full control in this whole process to see who's going to be using their kitchen, decide if it's a good fit or not, put a deposit if they need one, give the orientation session they need, and this whole process is going to be facilitated so you're not lost in your emails.
Epic. All right, so then that let's just walk through the process. I think at the beginning of this episode,
I think there's one thing before we do a walkthrough.
Do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is related to storage and health inspectors. So I just wanted to share some things that came through in a conversation I had with a health inspector on what they need, right? So we talked about storage. Do you have storage, yes or no? That's one thing. But let's actually talk about how the storage is used. So let's say you're a restaurant, right? And you have all of your ingredients, and there's a shelf that you've cleared half the shelf, right? And Keegan's bag of flour is here. If the health inspector ever comes in, and they might, if you now as a restaurant are starting to share with somebody else, it might not be right away, it might be 3 weeks later, but like they might pop by, because that's what they do. They do pop-in inspections to say, okay, like there's another business in here, what's going on? If my ingredients for the restaurant and your ingredients are all intermingled, and you personally might know that's my bag of flour, and the chef from my restaurant might know that's not my bag of flour, the health inspector sees all of our things mixed, bad, big bad. They're going to say, whose bag of flour is this? If you say, I don't know, there's a 2 out of 3 chance you're going to watch the health inspector throw out that food in your face. They're ruthless when it comes to that. If the traceability isn't there, garbage. Because for them, it's a risk to public health, right? And there's food waste there. That's the whole rant on how, if we like that or not, irrelevant.
Different episode.
It's how it works.
Right.
And so in the app, right, in the platform, if I'm renting shelving to you, like a good thing would be number your shelves, label your shelves.
Right. Cordon off like specific volumetric areas of like, so there's 3 cubic meters of shelving space, and James has one of those meters, and Justin has another, and Sally's got the third.
Yeah.
And that flour belongs to Sally, and it never touches, it never crosses this little piece of tape right here. No one, cool. Gotcha.
And same as well. So that's what health inspectors want to see. Also, just label your stuff. Like, get some green masking tape. That's what everybody in the restaurant industry uses. It's the least sticky. Put a piece on, use a Sharpie, write a name like Keegan's Business, and a date. Like, just do that. But when it comes to, scheduling, like maybe me as a restaurant, maybe I have 2 different businesses. Like somebody comes in on Monday and somebody comes in on Tuesday. Labeling things and having clear records of whose is what is even more important, but also a log of who was in the kitchen when. And that's another reason why we built FoodWeb, is because the health inspectors, if something ever happened, if you catered a wedding, and a bunch of people got food poisoning and they needed to trace that back and investigate the kitchen and yada yada, me as the kitchen owner, if the health inspector says who was in your kitchen on Monday, and I don't have a log of that,
That's your fine.
that's my fine.
Yeah.
And, like...
How big's that fine?
I don't know.
It's not $8 though.
Well, but I don't know if it goes direct to money fines and how many chances they give you. I've never personally been in a restaurant when we had like penalization. We've had reports of food poisoning and we've had inspections, but when they come in, they're like, okay, things look good. And if you're operating a kitchen already, like you already have to be doing certain things, like your fridge temperature checks and your log of when it was cleaned and all those things. That's already being done. It's just now when somebody else is using your kitchen, we have to track and log those efforts. So that way, if and when the health inspectors say, hey, I need a log of your use, you don't only have your log, you have this log. And this is all ready for you in the platform. So
a big question here would be, okay, you want to rent your kitchen. Are you prepared to do all of that yourself? And then what's the answer that we usually get there, Justin?
The answer is nope. And one example, when we went on tour in the spring, we were down in Yarmouth, and one of the city councilors told us that there's a renovated new community center attached to a fire hall. And in that, there's this massive, beautiful commercial kitchen with active permits. It's empty all the time. They might do an event once a season or, once a month or different things and the odd rental. But in terms of renting it out to food businesses, it's not happening. And there's food businesses in Yarmouth actively looking for part-time rental kitchens. 3 of them came to our focus group. And, they have a bustling farmer's market, a growing little local food economy. And what it came down to was the people that run that building are volunteer firefighters and, but they're not property managers.
Right.
And, somebody that typically runs a community center, their job is HR, community outreach, event planning. Being a property manager is a different set of roles and expectations. You have to get copies of the keys made. You have to call the plumber if the sink gets stuck. Like, property managers are that's why they're called property managers.
Right.
They do that thing. And if you're now going to get into a rental agreement and handle all these things, you're a landlord and a property manager now. And a lot of people just don't have the time or don't have the skill set or the knowledge.
Or the desire.
Yep.
Yeah, like you might have the problem of like vacant space and you want to have more money in your pocket, but then when it comes right down to it and you've listened to this whole episode and everything that's involved, and oh boy, it's a really big job to even just get your kitchen prepared to do this. So then, yeah, why would I do this?
Well, why would I do this?
Like, why would I rent my kitchen? It just seems like such a big job.
Yeah, so, there's two parts to this. The first one I'll say is money, right? Like, so many restaurants are struggling, right? So many cafes are struggling. The cost of food is wild. And a lot of cafes close at 5 p.m., and it's just sitting there, right? So it's an asset that you paid a lot of money for that isn't being used. There's an inefficiency there. Not that it's like your fault that it's inefficient. Just like generally in the system, we have all these things just sitting idle. Bakeries that get used for 8 hours and then everybody goes home. They made all the bread. The ovens are empty. And then we have people making cookies at home, selling at the market that are ready to start making bigger batches of cookies that need to rent a kitchen. You just talked about this cookie guy a couple days ago.
I did talk to him. Yeah,
and,
exactly.
He could rent that bakery. That bakery could be making extra money, right? They could use that to renovate their building or pay their staff more or take the vacation they haven't had in years as a business owner, right? So money, one. Two, the food system needs it, right? Like, look at the news, man. Like tariffs, the price of food, like farmers are getting old and going to start retiring any day now. Like it's, we've talked about that in other episodes where it's like, oof, like the food system really needs help. How is the food system going to get help, right? It's going to get help by local businesses getting going so they can build up and feed us, right? Whether those are farmers or food producers, food, manufacturers. So, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple. We have touched on like food security and strengthening local food systems in other episodes, but just for the sake of like topically, like painting a picture here, like what does the food system look like, and how does that even address this problem? Like, does it address this problem? When does it address the problem? How quickly does it address the problem?
Yeah. Okay. So.
Being shared kitchens.
Yeah. Shared kitchens. So, if we want to see our grocery store shelves lined with local food, right? Because if the trucks stop driving to Nova Scotia, these figures are going to look a little bit different in every region. But in Nova Scotia, we're almost an island. We've got this thin little strip of land to connect us to the rest of Canada and the supply chain. Trucks stop coming in. Grocery stores are going to start running out of food in 3 to 5 days, maybe a week, maybe 2, depending on what section of the grocery store, right? We don't have those factories making the food here. A lot of things are imported, right? We know this. So if we want to replace that with locally produced foods, I think it would be rare if somebody tomorrow said, I'm going to open like a 100,000 square foot soup factory. It might be, hey, I have a good soup recipe. I'm going to make 100 jars at a time and sell them at the farmer's market. And then it's going to be, oh, people really like my soup. I'm going to make 1,000 jars at a time now and sell at 5 stores in my community. And then it's like, oh, like organizations like Food and Beverage Atlantic that help people kind of get going. Maybe you meet somebody from Sobeys, like local chain of grocery stores. Now I can make 10,000 jars at a time, and then Loblaws comes in and says, oh, I want these guys on my shelf. Like, we're going to make 100,000 jars of soup at a time. Now we can build a big soup factory, right? That beginning of that journey, where are you making your soup, right? We've heard from hundreds of food businesses that want to make that soup, and they can't because they're not ready to sign a full-time lease. They need to rent a place 1 or 2 days a week to make food to sell at the farmer's market or a couple small stores. So for kitchen owners, opening your doors, like you can make more money and you can power the growth of the local food economy. You can be a part of incubating and giving these businesses the launch pad they need to get off the ground.
Epic. Are there any side effects to renting your kitchen? Like a couple that I can think of off the top of my head is we're gonna be your biggest champions, for example. Like we're gonna talk about you. We're gonna have case studies. We'll send people your way, kind of thing. This additional revenue line for you, and the support that you bring to the community is meaningful to us. If we actually want to see the materialization of a stronger local food system, we need all of our food to travel less distance to the grocery store and then eventually to your table. And that looks like more local food production. Anyway, you cut that cake, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. But you asked an interesting question. Are there any side effects to, that's a positive side effect. But again, if you have concerns, what you think a negative side effect would be, we've heard a lot from kitchen owners of what barriers might exist. But if you have something in mind that is a barrier or something that's preventing you from wanting to share your space, let us know, right? Is that something that we can make easier, right? Is that something with a little bit better of a process and communication that we can facilitate that to take something else off your plate, right? We talked about volunteer firefighters aren't property managers, right? Let us be your property manager. Now, if there's something else that's not about that, it's something else, let us know too. We want to know, and our goal is to make it, that much easier for food businesses to get off the ground. And beyond kitchens, we've talked a lot about storage. There might be food grade storage units sitting empty around too. This isn't just about kitchens. This is about all food assets. If you're the owner of some piece of food equipment, storage, facility that isn't used all the time, and you think that other people could benefit from using that, reach out, right? That's what FoodWeb is building towards. Kitchens, I'm a chef. We started there. It's what I know the most intimately as a challenge. But definitely hit us up.
Awesome. So then next up, we got to zoom out, because we've been talking a lot about Nova Scotia, and that's just one province in the great big wide country of Canada. Food regulations are not uniform across Canada. Who sets those rules, and how do they differ from province to province? And what's our method of exploration and expansion and scaling into other provinces? Where's the next low-hanging fruit for us outside of Atlantic Canada, outside of our beachhead? This is what we know. We're both from Nova Scotia. Where do we go from here, and what provinces are posing a bigger challenge to us than others? What's the long-hanging fruit here?
Yeah, it's different everywhere. The food regulations are handled provincially for the most part, until you're so regardless of which province you come from, there's provincial regulations and there's federal regulations. In some instances, there might also be municipal. A city like Toronto is big enough they might have their own. I honestly don't know the nitty gritty in Ontario. But using that soup example again, I'm selling at the market one level. I'm selling at a couple small retails one level. Once I get into large scale distribution into Sobeys, Superstore, Loblaws, IGA, Costco, that type of stuff, that's when federal regulations are going to kick in, and they don't care about the province. You need facilities that are inspected by the CFIA and the federal things. That's for another episode. That's at the bigger scale, and I want local food to get to that scale, but a whole other conversation, okay?
Just to recap, that's what I understand. If I make a product in Nova Scotia, that doesn't necessarily mean I can cross the border to New Brunswick and sell that product in a health food store there.
Interprovincial, I think with all the tariff shenanigans, that some of that's been changing, but there are a lot of nuances about cross-border, what the product is, et cetera, so you'd have to talk with your inspectors about that interprovincially.
Gotcha. But then is there such a thing as like a federally inspected and certified like factory?
Yes.
And then like does that just kind of give me carte blanche to ship my product wherever I want in Canada if I'm federally inspected, or do I still need to do that double team of like I'm inspected in Nova Scotia because this is where it was produced, but also I'm federally inspected, versus like this is just a federally inspected facility. Can I now, does that give me the right to sell it in Nova Scotia, even though, there's a messy question there. Please pick it apart.
I'm going to humble myself and say I don't fully know. What I do know is that if you're producing in a factory that is federally inspected and you're selling your product to retailers that are also federally inspected, like if I sell to Loblaws can put that in their warehouse and distribute it to, they're in every province. They're now in control of that.
Cool, you're now in Loblaws.
But if I'm in Nova Scotia using a federally inspected kitchen to sell my product to a small store in BC, I just don't know. I don't know what provinces want to see what.
Epic. So if you do know, let us know.
If you do know, let us know. And if you work for public health, I'm going to be getting on the phone with each and every one of you slowly and surely. I've talked with PEI, I've talked with New Brunswick, Atlantic.
Of course, Nova Scotia.
Of course, Nova Scotia. I've never been to Newfoundland and I haven't talked to many people out there. It's soon up on the agenda. We're going to have to fly out and maybe take the ferry. That'd be cool. But I did get on a video call with Alberta. One day I just emailed them and I was like, actually emailed every province to be like, hey, we're Food Web. It'll probably be a while before we make it to Alberta, but I just want to reach out and say, hey, like, this is what we're doing. As much as we're helping the food businesses in the kitchens, we also want to help you to make the process easier for you. So you're not emailing stuff. So like, can you run me through what it would look like? And, Alberta's the only one that like clearly responded saying like, let's book a meeting. And we talked for an hour and we went through exactly what food, like they were like, sure, like thank you for reaching out in advance. But what emerged is that if you're selling at the farmer's market in Alberta, it doesn't matter if it's a high-risk food or a low-risk food. In Nova Scotia, there's Schedule A, Schedule B. Alberta's just like, it's a market, make whatever you want in your house kitchen. You don't even need a commercial kitchen.
Right, so just for listeners, Schedule B would be like your cookies and your croissants.
Cookies, jams, pickles.
Gotcha. And then Schedule A would be your chicken soup because it's got some meat in it. And
Even a salad with no chicken, but it's all chopped up, and therefore things could start,
Well, salad's a high-risk food item for contamination, if I'm not mistaken,
It is,
right?
it
Right?
is,
like
yeah.
E. coli and whatnot?
Yeah, so
Yeah, gotcha,
basically
okay.
anything other than baked goods, pickles, and jam.
But Alberta, they don't do this scheduling with respect to farmers markets.
Not to farmers markets.
But they do the scheduling with respect to like larger retail?
And smaller retail.
Okay.
Even if you go from farmers market to a smaller retail that is still just like mom and pop little grocery store, you're going to need to be producing this in a kitchen, a certified facility.
So then, essentially, what this represents is like Food Web is only like slightly less useful to these people, people like food entrepreneurs getting off the ground, because it means that they can cook that chicken soup in their farmer's market, and in the journey of scaling, they can go up to like whatever 100 jars, whatever their local market will satisfy. Whatever you can sell at your local market, great, that's the scale. But as soon as you want to make that jump outside of the farmer's market, we become relevant again, I guess.
And I think there's some relevancy. So even if you don't need the kitchen to sell at the market in Alberta, maybe you just like have kids at home and you still want to get out of the house to make your food. I think we'll still get to Alberta and say, hey, like rent your kitchen to whoever needs a kitchen, right? Your example of the cookie guy, he doesn't need a commercial kitchen because he's doing Schedule A, but he wants to make bigger batches so he can sell more, and his oven's only so big.
Right.
So people are always going to need a kitchen at some point. It's just kind of unique that if you're just getting started in Alberta, it might be a little bit easier because you can kind of, just have the upper hand by not having it be a hard requirement to get started.
Yeah, epic. I got you. So then, Jeez, this was good. This is a lot of information to digest.
It's a lot, yeah. And we're putting together guides and checklists, and once we move past our kind of initial grand launch, making some like video walkthroughs and modules, like we want to make this as easy as possible. If there's something missing that's like, hey man, step 12, I just like can't with that, and it's like, okay, please let us know and let's make it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here to do. So then, Justin, just lay out where people can find us and reach out to us. Give us some parting thoughts, some optimism for getting your kitchen listed on FoodWeb or not. We, at the end of the day, our goal is to strengthen local food systems. And so if you don't use FoodWeb, but you still want help getting your kitchen certified, that fits into our goal. So reach out. We want to talk to you regardless of if you want to work with us or not. Your input is really valuable to us building a business that can help society essentially. And I want more local food.
Yeah. So where can you find us? We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're FoodWeb on there. Instagram, foodweb.network. Our website is also foodweb.network. So check us out. You can email me, Justin at foodweb.network.
I'm Keegan at foodweb.network.
We're always here to chat, and if you need any help in getting your kitchen up and running, I guess some closing wisdom would be, it's as hard as all this is, it's never been easier, right? There are more resources.
I like that.
There are more resources, whether that's FoodWeb or, there's so many people, community organizations really also focusing on this issue. So it's never been easier. Don't be overwhelmed. I know there's a million steps, but we've broken them all down. Reach out. We will make this as easy as possible.
Epic. Thanks, Justin.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.